Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the Silverlake Priestess Podcast. I'm Jaime Black, and I'm here tonight with Sir Pan Williams, and we are going to talk about sacred brotherhood and many, many other things. This man has a very interesting story to share with us, and he's another one of these really magical people doing magical things up
Yes,
at the
absolutely.
Ashland Goddess Temple. And so we honor Graell, Priestess Graell. We've had on the show twice
Yes.
already. Even though my initial connection was with Laura, I've met so many people because of Graell, and Graell has the Goddess Temple up there, and she's done all of this amazing work in teaching her community. And so this is some of the awesomeness that comes out of that, and always just to say Graell's name. Graell, we love you so much.
Yes, thank you, Lady Grail, for all the blessings that you bestow on this world. Everybody that she touched, I don't know, I guess I shouldn't speak for everybody, but I'll speak 100% for me. Thank you. It has been a blessing, and it's still unfolding, which we'll get into now, but there's so many good things happening with Grail, with the Goddess Temple Ashland, with the Oak Temple in Ashland as well, and many happy things that are blossoming. Unfurling.
It's perfect timing because we had Sativa Lee on the podcast last week.
Yes. Blessed Sati.
And we said your name. We talked about, so we're going to be talking about some of the work that you're doing up there. But I feel like she really set the stage for this conversation, just non-intentionally, but we talked a lot about Beltane. She's been the May Queen for the second year because of the pandemic, and so just talking about the work that she's doing. We were talking about men's circles and
Yes.
And the work that she does with men and what she's wanting to do with men, and how I thought that was such an interesting offering, like an interesting perspective, to be leading to be a woman and be leading a men's circle, because obviously it's gonna be different than a women's circle, but just what an interesting place. And so then now we're going to talk to you, who is a man doing work with men, and so of course your circles and your trainings and all of that stuff is going to be entirely different because you're working with them in a different way and offering a whole different set of teachings, and just the thing that's interesting about the circle work and all of that's happening nowadays is really what this is doing is that this is taking place, is offering us who didn't have like coming of age ceremonies and coming of age trainings and the wisdom that is shared in all of that, right? Most of us, because it hasn't been part of our culture in so long, we didn't grow up as young children being in circle, being exposed to men, right? And men's trainings in circle, and like women and women's trainings in circle. And so we were never there for initiations and activations, and I'm getting chills. And so what's happening now is so many of us as adults, and just in this time, it's like we're all coming to this. We're being called to it at different times, but we're coming to this. We're having experiences with each other, and then we're having these deep transformational, activational experiences, for our own selves. So I'm excited to go deeper into this with you. So
Yes. Oh my gosh, so much richness in what you've just shared, Jaime. I just want to honor that. And yes, we will dive into these threads, but it is a living, breathing experience. And here we are with the opportunity to really reset things, look at things in a new light, and explore what does it mean to do men's work in a spiritual context in the 21st century. How does it align? How do we find the spiritual connection among men and men in conjunction with women? How is it done? This is our opportunity. I'm so much about fresh mind, don't know mind, beginner mind, empty mind. I come from a Buddhist background. And this is to me, that is part of the freshness that's coming into this year, the spring. There's a sense of possibility that is alive, buzzing for me. And we're moving towards it with this Beltane holiday, which we'll talk more about. So those are just a few juicy tidbits that are tantalizing me and filling me actually with a lot of joy, gratitude, and a sense of there's a richness. It's a touching sense that I feel in this moment.
And so much part of all of this too is ceremony, right? Ceremony,
Yes.
honoring times, the earth, the nature of the earth and the seasons and all of that has always been a time that humans have taken to honor the changes there, but then to like personally reflect on how that's helping them. And I think that we really need this right now. We're coming on almost exactly a year of when, the first lockdown happened. And for many people have spent this entire year not in connection and not in, it's breaking down a lot of the communication, but like not together with other people. So not participating in ceremony. I did, some things online, but my last in-person women's circle was this coming weekend last year. And so I haven't sat in circle with women in the entire year. So that's part of what we learn in these types of trainings, and it's part of the personal experience too that we're getting to have out of ceremony. And so I think really acknowledging this time, it's true, we're coming up to spring, we've just passed through the winter.
Yes.
The last year being very transformative, we can look at it in a bunch of ways, but when we look at, coming out of a certain type of darkness, we do refer to that as, being in winter and coming out of winter. So there is that opportunity.
The return of the light. It's coming back. The days getting longer, brighter.
So let's start. I really like to go into the background of the people who are here on the show. And so, we have in your bio that you're a monk, that you're a traveling monk.
I've walked the path of the modern monastic for the last 5.5 years. And it's only in this new year that I've changed my lifestyle from living, running, training at, teaching at modern monasteries, full-time, round the clock, immersive. It's community, it's spiritual training, it's an opportunity to try and preserve life on earth and turn the whole collective mind somewhere towards wisdom and compassion instead of a destructive path, and the place that we've got ourselves in over a long series of all sorts of recurring patterns and traumas. And I walked that path residentially. And now in this new year, it's a big time of transition for me because I have left the modern monasteries and embraced a different walk where I'm out in the world much more. Although I was quite engaged as a modern monastic, I was on the mountaintop in Vermont, but then I was also traveling the country. I was reaching to many people that were coming to the modern monasteries to train, anything from a day, a week. But really, our signature is going really deeply with a smaller number of folks. 2 months, 3 months is sort of the minimum of the apprenticeship, or year-long, or for some folks like myself, up to a half a decade of immersive, full-on meditation, leadership training in order to produce leaders who are trained in wisdom and compassion and have the power to really bring that to the world and make an impact. This is needed. This is called for. And this type of spiritual leadership that comes from deeply undergoing a mystical process, a contemplative path, the direct realization of wisdom through meditation, through change of lifestyle, letting go, through ethics, through working in community, through service. This is embodied through the modern monastic system that has been built on. Please and thank you to all of those lineage who for literally thousands of years have maintained monastic traditions, thriving in some parts of this world with some temples that have go back longer than this country has been around, absolutely, and sometimes much more. And so I thank them. And this tradition that I'm in, the CEDAR lineage, Community for the Experience and Development of Awakening and Responsibility, CEDAR, the modern monasteries are taking that ancient wisdom and a lot of other current modalities such as interpersonal relating, working with technology, such as meditation-assisted neuro, delivering electrical impulse. We've experimented on the tech side, worked at the cutting edge of activism. I've personally worked against nuclear weapons, incorporating meditation. This is all part of the modern monastic path. And it's a very engaged, it's rooted in the teacher and founder is a Rinzai Zen Buddhist monk. And it's a really rich and actually quite powerful lineage of changing the world. The Rinzai lineage worked in Japan with those who were oftentimes very powerful and well respected in society, royalty, leaders, political and military leaders, and bringing the Buddha Dharma to those who were able to make a vast influence on the world is part of the monastic tradition that has touched me deeply. And so I'm inspired by that, because here in America, it's what in 21st century US is what is monasticism? If you'd have asked me that, 7 years ago, I guess I would have known. Absolutely. I wouldn't have deeply known, because it's not common discussion in our culture, and it's not, and I would have had some incomplete idea and some vague idea. Yet in many parts of the world today, and throughout the past, much more so, the monasticism is seen as a deep part of the world and a functioning community. Oftentimes, there's often a spiritual center of practitioners at the heart of a city. This is just sort of like a theme that you find, and whether it's Christian monasticism, whether it's Buddhist monasticism, or you find these spiritual mystics who then offer services, teachings, spirituality to the people, and then there's a symbiotic relationship where everyone's working together. And this is a rich tradition, and it's largely not present here. We have a form of more individualized, hyper-westernized, solo, do-it-yourself kind of practice. It's, to me, uprooted from community. And indeed, the Buddha talked about these three jewels. So there was the Buddha himself, the Buddha nature, that we are all divine. Okay, and then there's the Dharma, the teachings, all of the richness that. So those are the first two jewels, and then the third one, though, which is equally important, even as those is highly praised, of great importance, Sangha, which is community. Mm-hmm. And so when we remove the spirit, when we remove that big element of like one of the three legs of the stool, and just say, okay, everybody do it off on your own, and that's just the norm, and it's like a pull yourself up by your bootstraps undertone. There's sort of like a Western assumption, and then it's tied up in all of the other ways that we're disconnected, and you get consumerism in there big time. And so this is an opportunity to re-explore community. I've done it in modern monasticism, and I've traveled to, visited many various communities everything from yoga centers to ashrams, farms. It was part of my job actually, was to network and try and find a property when I was in Santa Cruz for one of our modern monasteries. So I visited probably 20 different retreat centers, wedding centers, conventions, intentional communities, organic farms, and has a wide swath of things that are, there's a re-interest in it, certainly generally, but this last year too has kicked it off, that people are interested in community, they're interested in land, they're interested in building something together. It's really exciting, actually. I'm a very optimistic person, despite me being very blunt about the harsh state of reality. I'm very, very enthused. As you can see, I can just talk and talk. So I want to turn it back over to you. And thanks for receiving my share. It's fun to shine my light a little bit here with you.
Absolutely. I really like to give people the opportunity to like share and let it out. And that's what I like to do here on the podcast. I mean, sometimes I'll spend most of the session really just listening. And that was, something that I was communicating about just recently, is that this situation has just been like an incredible way for me to learn things and meet people that are doing work, and that is not anything I would have been exposed to otherwise necessarily, because I'm having you here. I need to it's really cool when so I always meet up with people, on the phone or Zoom or however we're going to do it, before having them here on the show, because even though I like the show to be an experience where it's organic and I'm asking you real questions, because I have real interest, I need to know what somebody's about. I need to know what somebody's doing. And so it's really cool because, we just got to have this experience where you were just telling me about your life mission and telling me about the work that you're doing and why it's important to you. And so just that experience, I mean, just, how often do we really listen to each other? Just in general, how often do we really listen to each other,
Yes.
share about what our purpose is? And it's really important for the person sharing. It really, so many things get figured out in the share, or so many things get activated in sharing. And I'm someone who, I use my voice a lot. And what I've learned about that is that if I let it just be just the energy come out, this happens in readings a lot. It's like there's a lot of information that's coming through me that is not necessarily coming from this vessel that I learned from, like, as I'm sharing. And that's absolutely part of what happens when we share about our purpose, right?
Absolutely. Letting that flow just pass through you like a hollow eagle bone. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Please continue.
So I want to ask about so what is the living situation like? So is it only men? Is it, so what, because
so we're talking about the Paladin's path, or you want to talk about
monastery,
so in the modern monasteries, no, there are men, there are women, there are non-binary folks, there's folks of all different walks of life. Yeah, young folks, old folks, different folks from different places. We have people from different countries. A lot of people come to the modern monasteries because they're deeply training there, and the teacher is the teachers, there are several teachers in the lineage, I guess myself included now. I forget because I'm just like, I guess I should preface by saying I'm actually not, I don't think I'm actually like an excellent representation of a sample size of modern monastic practitioners. And I'm also, again,
why is that?
Why? Because I'm the coyote, because I'm like a wild card. I'm like this is literally, okay, coyote, wild card, that's funny, because I have this animal card deck. So you see, I'm kind of wild. I get off on crazy tangents, but it's really fun, huh? So I had this animal card deck, and I'm like, I'll draw an animal card. As soon as I did, like this thing fell out, and it was like, oh, it's a coyote. And this is totally, I don't know. I got everything. It's just so it's a wild ride for me. I live, and I'm just, many folks, for instance, when you're, the culture that I'm showing to you now is I have been deeply influenced by modern monasticism, but I'm not embodying one who is practicing it currently. So if I was in the modern monasteries, this would be just this because
Non-simulation.
it's simple. Yes, you don't want to distract your mind if you're going deeply into spiritual practice. You want to have simplicity and letting go in this particular style of training. This would be brown. The only colors allowed are brown and then sometimes gray, black, dark blue. But that again, once you start, I was like, why? I don't get it. Once you start meditating deeply, the modern monasticism, like the path laid out by the Buddha and other spiritual teachers within that came later, it makes experiential sense in a way that is hard to grasp. So it's like, well, why only wear brown? And you come from the Western sensibility, like, oh, I want to express myself. It's like, this is part of my, and that I'm not, that is a thing. But then a big part of the teachings of modern monasticism is when you enter the modern monastery, you are intentionally relinquishing and changing your life, your lifestyle, what you're doing on a minute by minute basis. You're putting yourself in an agreement where you're going to show up to an hourly, half hourly, sometimes 15-minute, highly laid out schedule. You're going to full-time immerse yourself. You're going to be next to the same people that you wake up at 4:40 in the morning and roll off of your mat and roll it up and put it away because you got to sit in meditation in that space. Sometimes you have a bed, but sometimes you're just on the floor. And then those are the same people that you're meditating with. Those are the same people that you exercise with, all mindfully in silence. Those are the same people that then you sit all eating in silence together, meditating, practicing. Then you all work together and you run the entire modern monastery, which is a nonprofit from top to bottom. I've done every role in it, everything from, what all goes into that. There's buildings and grounds, there's operations, but then there's also paying the taxes. There's taking in donations, there's fundraising, there's communications, marketing. All of that is being practiced by modern monks. So it's like, not like there's a separate staff. It's when you enter this training program, it's like you're entering an experiential part of this movement and community and training, and it transforms you, and it's of deep benefit. And I get excited about that, and then I share about that. And you'll see that I will often bring it back to my present moment experience in communication. So a very powerful teaching tool that it's found in mindfulness, is found particularly in modalities of authentic relating, of circling, as taught by groups like Circling Europe, which I've trained with, Mike Blas. And this is a way of being fully in the present as you're with another and owning your own experience. So, it's like, wow, like right now I'm feeling really excited, and part of me is feeling, wait, I'm kind of nervous. And then I'm noticing that my cheeks are warm, and now I'm noticing that they're really smooth, and I'm seeing my face in the, and so this is a real time way of being with a human. And it's not just talking about like, well, what do you think about that news event? Or, let's debate about it. It's just like, I'm sharing my experience and being with you in a very, well, as they say, an authentic form of relating in real time. And it's a form of mindfulness because it is present, aware. And so as you're incorporating that way of being, it is, again, it's part of the path of spiritual path that we're walking forward on. And that's cool that you can be transformed for the better by setting up forms of communication that will just, like, as you then connect with people, your connections will be even more positively transformative, even more beneficial for yourself and usually the other people involved.
Well, I want to know what are your commitments going into that? Like, so do you commit
Oh, yes.
a period of time?
Yeah, you do. I mean, one of the benefits of what we've done is that we've had many different ways to play. We've made it very customizable, including even in the meditation practices and what you're doing there. It's more flexible than a lot of traditions where you walk in and there's like, okay, here's the technique that we do here. Like, this is your meditation instruction and just do this. We have more flexibility than have in the past. We've experimented with many exciting models, such as remote workers coming and living in the modern monasteries and then going deeply into the meditation for hours in the morning and evening. But then a lot of the period during the day, they're working on their own projects, whether that's creative projects, whether that's, we had like a therapist who would, just work remotely. Anybody that's working remotely, you can be in a modern monastery, then your life is enriched with that. So in terms of commitment, yes, commitments we take very seriously, and they're very powerful tools. So when you make a commitment, one of the big values that we uphold is DWSI would. It's an acronym, DWSI would. Do what you said you would do. And so it's a powerful spiritual tool to make a dedication and commitment, and then to go for it and stick to it. And so that might look like, okay, I'm just gonna, and there's different forms of that, right? If you come as a guest and a visitor, that's there are certain expectations. If you want to do an apprenticeship, that's a 2 to 3 month experience, and you commit to that. And then that's yet a higher bar of commitment in terms of both the amount of time, but then also the agreement. It's sort of like you're getting a deeper experience, and you're also giving more of your life. And then you might have a longer commitment as you go on. Maybe you take on a role as a director, or like for me, I had the opportunity to move. First, I started in Vermont, and then they needed someone to direct Oak, our operation in the Bay, in California, where you're at. And so, I took on that commitment, and I said I said I'd be there for a year, and that was my 2020 year. It was in the Bay. I guess I was a little more than a year there, but yeah, so I took on that commitment. That's an example. But again, the way that we look at the vow, which is big to us, it's the vow can be defined as where who you are and what you have to offer meets the world and what the world is calling for. And it's this alignment where it's like your highest expression of service, of joy, of embodiment into the world, in alignment with each moment of what the world is, you could say, is offering, or what the world is asking, maybe both. So when you live in the vow, each person, but part of the vow is that each person's vow is in each moment, and each person's vow is unique. And it's not something that you would, on a logical sense, think like, my vow is this thing. My vow is to bring mindful music to schools. Like, no, that's way too up, and it's an experiential, lived, moment by moment, flowing, morphing, changing thing, whatever is in front of you. Say the way, one of the hallmarks of our teaching in the CEDAR tradition of modern monasticism, that dates back also to the Rinzai Zen influence, is a one-on-one connection between teacher and student, where both are connecting, both are deeply in meditation practicing, and both are spontaneously opening to each other in this flow together, this dance. And from a teaching perspective, as a student, it's like, it can't get any better, because this direct transmission, you are in the presence of an energetic powerhouse. My teacher, Sawyer for All, he's just like radiates. The world seems to warp around him, is what people say. And so to be in that presence, and both of you deeply, deeply dropped in real time, very, very powerful space, and doing that as in conjunction with the rest of the modern monastic path holistically. It's not like you just like show up for an hour, get the teaching, and then go back to your life. It's a powerful way of connecting. And so in that path, again, we have a living experience where, if you're the student, you drop in and you have no idea what the teacher is going to do or say. Absolutely none. It could be anything from the gentlest, sweetest, kindest softness. It could be very firm. It could be quick and just, simple, it could be poetic, it could be hilarious, it could be fierce and ferocious. These are warriors. These are people that trained the samurai. You know the samurai, why were they so powerful? Don't even get me started on Batman. He's a warrior. He's like a monk and a knight in one. You see these tangents.
We like Batman.
So what's that?
I said we like Batman.
I like Batman. Yeah, absolutely. Batman is great. Yeah, I could tell I ramble about Batman. I'm so into his origin as a monk when he though actually not just that, but that is one of the hallmarks of it, which is like he has this horrible traumatic experience as a child. His parents are murdered in front of him. This is harsh and graphic. But then he basically has to hide in the sewers, right? Because it's this like horrible trauma. And he's this little kid. He's, I think, like 4 or 5 years old. And then his parents are dead. And then he grows up as this lost child and cared for by Alfred, of course. And then he has all the money in the world. He's inherited this vast fortune, but it's not bringing him any satisfaction or happiness. And so he's already had all of the richness, just like the Buddha, who was born into the life of a prince, who had the best food. He had a massive hot tub. He had various palaces. He had elephants. He had 120 musicians. They go on and on. He had the best. You couldn't get any better. So he had it all, but then he found that there were some stark realities that this kind of simple sense pleasure only goes so far, and that there's a deeper level of existential suffering that's happening. And that was what was so brought into focus with the death of his parents, with Bruce Wayne. So he travels the world and he finally finds the guru, Ra's al Ghul, in the Dark Knight trilogy, played by Liam Neeson. Badass.
So
I hope I can say it. Can I say that on the show?
Good. Oh yeah, you can say that.
Ass. Yeah. Okay. All right. So Ra's al Ghul, and he enters this mountaintop ninja training program that's just like this esoteric brotherhood of spiritual warriors who are trying to influence the course of humanity. And he begins training with them, and he goes deep, and he develops a deep relationship with Ra's al Ghul, his master. And then Bruce Wayne, it's finally time for him to have his final initiatory rite. You mentioned earlier initiation and the power of that, and how it's often lacking in our society. So this is an example in the Batman with an initiation, and this is spiritual transformation that he's undergoing in this temple and training with these ninjas and this esoteric order. And he must retrieve this special, rare, sacred flower. It's a lotus. I believe it's blue or white. I think it's maybe blue. And he has to retrieve this sacred flower, and it's this extreme ordeal. And he finally gets it. He brings it back, and he creates. He in ceremony ingests this flower, and it's a psychoactive plant medicine.
That part. I don't know how I missed that part.
This is in Batman Begins. This is the
I've seen it a bunch of times.
It's amazing, and I might be getting part of it wrong or something, but this is the general. So in this experience, he has this potent psychoactive ceremonial. All of these brothers are around him in armor and stuff, and they're like faceless, and it's just and so he returns to that trauma when he was a little child, and his poor little Bruce Wayne, this sweet young boy, and his parents murdered, and he returns to that. And he remembers that when his parents had been murdered, he had kind of hidden in the sewers, and there were bats in darkness and bats everywhere, black night and bats down in the sewers. And he was terrified by this. It was dark and scary. It was, he bats everywhere. And so in this experience that he has ingesting this substance in ceremonial sacred ritual, he returns to that and re-experiences, thus transmuting the pain, the suffering, the horror, and turning the terror of the bats, the terror of confusion and night, into his deepest superpower to serve the world. And he becomes the Dark Knight. And that's why, because like, why is Batman, how can he do all this cool stuff that he does? It's because he went through this spiritual transition and he transmuted his pain into his superpower.
Well, this
and
is
then
shadow work.
It's shadow work.
You know, this is very, everybody's very into this right now. And that's, yes, it's the fears, the stuff that's in our shadow, the things that we don't want to look at, that we hide from. There's power in that. And I also like to talk about, you know, trauma. People have so much shame around the trauma that they've experienced in life, because there's all different kinds, right? And so there's all different things can be done to you and all of that. So people definitely have very real traumatic experiences, but that they feel shame from them, rather than looking at them like, and this is there for me to explore, and there's so much information in there that I'm going to be able to like transmute this into something that I actually use to help people with.
The wounded healer archetype. Yes.
Absolutely.
And this is true in meditation teaching as well. So when you're on the path to become a spiritual teacher or meditation teacher, we talk about experiences that are challenging in your practice, right? It's like, maybe you have extreme fatigue, maybe your body really aches and you have a lot of pain, maybe you have anxiety and restlessness that really comes up. There are a variety of different challenges that come up along the path of meditation, especially as you continue to deepen. So that sounds harsh and unpleasant, and like, why that actually just sounds kind of objectively bad when you first look at it. But there's a blessed, and I guess like, it's not even like a silver lining, it's another transmutation that actually takes it from looking at it like a hindrance into a blessing, which is, once you have gone through that challenge, you can then empathize with and guide others as they are on that path. And so if you're trying to teach somebody meditation and they're like, I have extreme drowsiness, well, there's an answer to that. But like, if I can actually say, well, yeah, like, I've gone through so many early dark, cold mornings where I've been totally dead and drowsy, and I've had to fight it for the fight of my life. And I've had the sit leader at the front of the room, Pan, wake up. A couple minutes later, Pan, wake up, stay awake.
Maybe me.
You know, so I'm like, so that's a much different, and that's actually a pretty tame example of this, because I mean, I think it's particularly potent when it can come into some of the deeper experiences, like especially talk healing, when you, like, people who have the wounded healer archetype, you know, people who have gone through trauma can then have a powerful and potent way to help all the others who come after them. And then that's the good news, my brothers and sisters. Preach. But yeah, because we're all on the spiritual path somewhere. Each of us is some part, it's our own unique journey, and it's each of us, just all of us moving towards enlightenment that will come, who knows when, how, don't know how. But this great faith, this is part of Buddhism, in particular Mahayana path, is having this robust, powerful, alive faith that the Buddha nature is alive and well, and that we are on that path and just living by that and throwing ourselves into that. And it's not the only part of it, because if you just have great faith, then that's not good enough, but it is champion. And so each of us is somewhere on the spiritual path. So to me, the lesson that has been coming is that this is an opportunity for great compassion, when you really just look at even the worst criminal, even the person that you despise the most, or, you know, the politician that you abhor. They are, if you zoom out far enough, okay, they are on a cosmic path, and they have known suffering, and they are suffering now, and they are doing their best in whatever way, and they are working through. And we know that ultimately we are all of the same divine nature, and we're all, because of that, we have compassion. It's not like that's a bad person, they're a jerk and they're wrong. You can say that their behavior is objectively harmful and do something about it, but on the transcendent level, everybody is working through their stuff and going on their journey, and everyone is fundamentally good. And so if you look at that equation and you sit with that for a while, then like the loving people is the embodied and even logical answer. Although I'm not one for logic. I think I'm one for direct experience. This, therefore that, and then A plus B equal. I'm like, like this moment, that kind of thing is more my jam.
That's awesome. That's it takes some work for some people, I think, to get there, to be able to allow for that.
It's not the only way either, and it's also just part of it. It's all are welcome. My name Pan means all, so all of the pieces of the puzzle that we all contribute in different ways at different times. Never an absolutist for the most part. I think.
Well, how did you know that it was time for you to leave the monastery?
This is a great transition actually. So let's tell a little story, shall we? Okay. In 2020, Graell, our dear priestess who we mentioned earlier, contacted me. We had I'm not even sure how originally we got friended, and after a brief exchange, she had a deep intuition to invite me to lead ceremony for men at the Goddess Temple in Ashland, as a way to build the lineage and tradition that's been carried by the men of the Oak Temple. Excuse me. Not to be confused with the Oak Modern Monastery. This is the Oak Temple, the Order of Ascended Knights in Ashland, Oregon. Bless those brothers. And so she asked me to come and lead men's work. Okay. And so, wow. Can you imagine? I mean, it's not that I'm a spiritual teacher and I'm qualified, and I've led and experienced many different retreats, and that is my profession, if you will, I guess, if you want to say a modern monk is a profession. But I mean, I guess you could say it is too. It's not to be totally goofy, but I'm a goofball. So she asked me to come and lead a men's group, and I was deeply honored, and I hadn't thought about it was a woman asking a man to lead a group of men to support the women of the Goddess Temple and the Priestess College.
I love Graell.
Isn't that amazing? I mean, yes. It's just like and so I said yes, and I was just like, wow, I'm going to dive in. I had never, it was a total leap of faith for me, and it pulled me up into the next form of leadership. And then the Paladin, then it just happened again. She invited me, please, let's build on this. I had a transformative experience. We served, we have a really beautiful way of working with the Red Tent. The Red Tent women's movement is a powerful, gosh, we could get into that thread. But incorporating men supporting that in a way that is a separate space where they're there to empower and uplift the important work that the women are doing in the Red Tent, spiritual women's work that's happening there. And the men are also there praying, chanting, doing men's work, being in brotherhood, and supporting and uplifting those women in their practice. And so that was part of what we did on the summer solstice of 2020. This is part of 2020. This is a great blessing to be asked to do something like this, because I wouldn't have put it together myself. Like, I was busy running a modern monastery in the Bay Area and doing a million other things, as like directing this organization in a time of COVID. But I'm like, I'm just going to make this happen because this is amazing. I'll just get in my car, I'll drive from California to Oregon and go freaking do this, because this is huge. This priestess, what an honor for this amazing leader who has been at it for decades and has created multiple spiritual temples and has the goddess temples in Ashland and in Shasta, and is just an incredible leader. And so it was a great honor. So I said yes. And then it was like, okay, we did that. And now let's do something even bigger and better and more beautiful. It will be around Samhain time, Halloween time. We'll have a 3-day immersion on the grounds of men, a multi-day immersion where it's a retreat, it's residential. And it was the first time that they had done a residential overnight men's training in the Oak space. And so it was a first in many ways. It was 13 men plus myself. And one moment. Okay. Power up. Okay. Power.
Losing power.
The power is ours. Here we go. Okay, it changed the perspective a little. Oh, now you can see a moon flag up there. It's the crone. She's up there in the corner. Yeah. Bless it. Oh, there. Yeah, there we go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it's like, let's do it again. And I again, like I didn't particularly, let me be real, I didn't particularly want to work with men. I have before, and in the modern monasteries there are all people, but in the past there have been more men than women that have stayed long term. And so I've worked with a lot of men and over the years in different ways, but I was like, so I was just like, but I'm down to do it because that's part of the men's work, right? It's like, I don't know, maybe I want to hang out with a lot of different people, but it's like there are men's issues. This is a world that we live in where we are sharing a certain culture, a certain generational, everything from the experience that we share, the collective trauma within that. Let's be real, and everything else, all of that. So we're men and male identified people, and I also I would be remiss not to again point to your last podcast. If folks want to listen to Sati, the last episode of Silverlake Priestess Podcast, Sati talks about gender fluid work that's going on in that space. Mm-hmm. And that's actually coming up in the vernal equinox. And there's these, it's an excellent podcast. Please learn about it, because we're talking about men, we're talking about women, we're talking about folks who identify as men or women, but there's much inclusivity and openness, and there's actually specific work done for people who we talk about two-spirit. There's spiritual work happening with folks who are queer or non-binary, gender fluid. So listen to that podcast. Therefore, I don't have to talk. Well, not.
Well, that's interesting. So talking about it being two-spirit. I haven't heard that.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So rather than it being just like the multi-sides, or maybe like two strong sides, there's actually a conversation around it being like two spirits.
Yeah, I'm actually I don't think I'm actually qualified to
fair enough.
really explain two-spirit, but it is
we'll have somebody on here to talk about that.
Yes. And I would just say my grain of salt take of it with the sentence is that in indigenous culture, and that's particularly, I believe the two-spirit is Lakota, people use that, and it is a spirit, it's like a gender identity of sorts that is spiritually revered, that has to do with some form of queerness. Again, that it's above my pay grade to really explain it, but the fact that it is actually like incorporated into their spiritual worldview, that like this is actually like beneficial to have people who are two-spirit, or they whatever we'll research what that means exactly, but that it's seen as a benefit instead of just like, oh, maybe it's an anomaly or it's just like whatever. It's actually seen as like, this is a form of like, it's important and useful to have these people in a particular way, because, well, again, we'll learn more about exactly why.
Yeah. I
but
do know
why did I leave the modern monasteries?
Yes.
I've bookmarked that thread. We actually could we could do you know what? Okay. Because what happened was that was part of it, was that as I went through the Paladin's path, I went through a deep transformation. And then when I met with my teacher next, I told him, you know, I've been pulled into power as a leader. And I recognized my identity as a wizard really deeply. And I led the Paladin's path, and I was asked to come back and do what we're talking about coming up at Beltane, this 5-day immersion coming up. And I knew that, and I had led Oak. I had pioneered our newer modern monastery in the Bay through the year of COVID as the director, running a successful program and having great, highly positive experience. And so it was time that I was just like a sense of deep empowerment. I had never considered, I don't know, I didn't have a plan to leave or not to leave, but it just was so clear and divinely aligned. And a big part of it was Graell pulling me into my power, like inviting me as a man, and we can talk about the man woman thing, I don't know, but it's also just as a spiritual leader and teacher pulling me into that. And so my teacher, sorry, when I talked to him about it, we're having a cup of tea, which I get to do with him not so frequently these days. We're sitting down, but instantly he knew. Oh, okay. Like, yeah, I was wondering when you were going to tell me you were going to be leaving, and it was great. So that was when that transformation. So I have this to thank. And then it was shortly after that to my surprise, I was made a teacher in the CEDAR lineage, and also received lay ordination in Shingon Buddhism through Shinzen Young, who is one of my teachers and the founder of Unified Mindfulness, which we use at the modern monasteries as one of our foundational practices. And so that was massive. And that all happened at about the same time. And it was divine aligned convergence. So that's part of my personal story, I guess, of how I came to be now a post-monastic, whatever I am. Here I am, yeah.
So something that I'm wondering is, who is Paladin? Or
who is Paladin? Or what? Let's say, what is Paladin? Mm-hmm. Yes. I love the term Paladin. So Graell and I, we were talking about knights. Okay. And so this training, this lineage, that is at the Goddess Temple of Ashland, it heavily draws from Arthurian lore and this ancient traditions of knighthood that go back far in the past. Well, those listeners of your show and who know you, I think probably have a deep sense of that. So we have knighthood, and knights, oh my gosh, we could go on, right? They're just the best. Like, but people, the Dark Knight, Batman, we got a little bit into that. And then you have, what are the coolest things in the world? Okay, so it's the biggest TV show, Game of Thrones. What is that all about? Cool, it's knights, you know, it's and magic and dragons, you know. What's the biggest movie? Okay, wait, is that it? Yeah, Star Wars. Yeah, that's the most. What are those? Spiritual knights, Jedi. I mean, like, who? Yeah, there you go. Yeah,
that's where I come from. I grew up with
you. You are Jedi. I mean, but I like your the robes. It reminds me of, like, you know, it's a little bit of a Sith flavor. I like it, perhaps. Yeah, so
I'm not on the Sith side. I'll have to. I'm not. I am on the Jedi side.
Well, I don't know which side I'm on. I haven't revealed that yet. J/K. That's the coyote trickster in me. Yeah. So these are like really resonant themes with people, though. We see that, like, people is like are deeply resonating with it. So yeah. So the Paladin. So, but we're talking about knights, and there's a sense of reinventing knighthood. What is it to take these powerful ancient archetypes, the lore that's been passed down, that's morphed and transmuted over the ages, like Arthurian lore, the way that it goes back way back in the British Isles, and then it takes on different forms and it morphs, and Christianity comes along and it builds, and now it has everything in Hollywood has taken it to a different space, and now it's our opportunity to reinvent that. And that's why it's quest in reinventing, rediscovering, exploring, embodying, and going for 21st century spiritual knighthood. So what is a spiritual knight? Well, we began exploring that, and just knight didn't really seem particularly, it wasn't quite in alignment. So yeah, paladin is a term for a spiritual knight. There was a particular council of paladins that were associated with Charlemagne. There was said to be wise spiritual counselors, and there were, I believe, like 12 of them, and he was the 13th. It was a really interesting. I'd like to get more actually into some of the depth of the history of that. But building on that, the term, you find it in everything from modern role-playing games like fantasy, Dungeons and Dragons and such. You have paladins. They're like these spiritual knights. They're often like using magic and healing. Oftentimes they have like a loving, kind, positive, angelic aura. And so drawing from those themes, because people are like, what's a paladin? Like, okay.
So if I would have actually got to play Dungeons and Dragons, I would have known. I just got skipped over as far as that went. Like when I grew up, I couldn't believe that was not part of my reality. And that, I mean, I played Time Machine and all of that, but I didn't play Dungeons and Dragons. I didn't know.
It's in
and
video
still
games,
to this day, I'm waiting for someone to bring me in.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I think the best way to do it is now just to come and be at the Beltane ceremony, because that is the things that people want from the things that people are looking for as they explore realms of, I don't know, fantasy and embodying these magical archetypes. We can basically do that in a big way, that it just like in a much deeper, richer way through ceremony. Absolutely. And through, yeah. So it's like, if you want to play RPGs and stuff, like I don't really want to play video games with you, but if you come to Ashland, like I will meet you on Apple Island wearing the robe of deep green, and I'll bow to you, and we will sit and pray with the apple trees, and we'll be visited by all of the positive energies of the space, and we'll be cleansed and cleared. And I mean, that's what you might do in like an RPG or something, right? But like that's real life. So here we go.
I love Apple Island. I have sat in deep meditation on Apple Island, and I've talked about my experience a little bit with the male components of the goddess temple of Ashland, of some of the men of the Oak Temple. I think I was just talking about it again on the last podcast, but it's really beautiful, the teaching of the men and the women and the community sharing and everybody that shows up to participate the way that they do up there in Ashland. And that was part of like so Graell teaches about the priestess. She teaches about the archetype, and she teaches about the path. And then she offers trainings for women that want to participate in that. And so then she teaches the men about the priestess, about the work that they're doing, about what she's facilitating. She teaches about the sacred feminine and the sacred masculine. So, and then there's a lot of like ritual theater that has gone on up there. And then there's a lot of ceremony. Like you were saying, a lot of this gets, in ceremony. Two people like you and I we can work and be representations of sacred feminine, sacred masculine, and interact with each other in such a way, because it takes it outside of it just being us, like as humans, right? It presents a different opportunity. And so during this ceremony where the men of the Oak Temple up there were honoring the priestesses, that was something that I was super resistant to. I think you were listening to the show, so you probably heard me tell this story. And I was like, I don't want to have anything. I was there to participate. Yeah. So like, that's the thing about me, is that I am very, I'm Scorpio. I have, Mars conjunct my sun. I'm very like intense about stuff. I can be very opinionated about things, but then my Mercury in Libra, and also, I have Uranus conjunct my son as well, it creates this like openness where I'm like, okay, but I'm this way, but I can also see that there's this. So there's an experience that I have of me being me over here, kind of walking over here to be like, okay, well, I'm going to be open for this experience because I know, just my own story. It's like all of the things that I said, I don't want to do that and I don't want to be that and I will never, when I finally got to the point in my life where the thing that I was never going to do was happening. I was more in line with that. I was more in line with that than maybe anything else and that like I ever could have imagined. So I understand that about life. And then I understand that about myself. And so anyway, part of when I got to go onto Apple Island was during part of the men honoring the priestess, the whole ceremony in different ways that we got to participate. And so I got to go on Apple Island, and then there was, a man there representing the sacred masculine, and they were all dressed in white. And I got to go sit with him and just be and sit in whichever way, so I could communicate with him in whichever way that I needed to. And he just like held his hands up here for me. And so I didn't even have to touch him, but like I was able to just put my hands like above him. I was able to have eye contact, and there's a little bit of guidance on like how we would participate in these different moments with different people, because there was like, you can have this experience under the tree, and then you can have this experience in the tea garden, and you can have this experience over here. And so I decided to walk over and have that experience, and so how powerful it was to have someone. And again, because we don't know each other, and so as much as it's all personal, when you're like, I'm honoring you as the person that you are, when you're able to step outside of you, and this is like, okay, this is the sacred masculine honoring the sacred feminine, I'm allowing myself just to like be the feminine in the situation, and how is it that I need to be held, and how held energetically, not touched, right? Because that was part of my thing, is I needed not
held space, held presence,
and acknowledged. And so then to be like, eye contact and listened to, and it was kind of like I could share if I want to, I could be silent if I wanted to, and this person wasn't going to be expecting anything from me in order to hold space. They were just going to hold space. And so that was so powerful. And so these are the men that Graell is calling in more teaching for and more education for. And she's really just a specific, magical, powerful being that is really living her life by what she believes, to be of value, and really offering these experiences for people. And so, it's just, there's a community that is like willing to learn, and then as they're learning, then they're willing to learn more. And then so it's really absolutely an honor for her to see you and what it is that you're offering, and say, I would love you to come here. Because I know that she was doing the sword and the stone type of, there was a training that she was doing, the training, and it had to do with like training for men. And anyway, there's I know there's like new, teachings that are going on up there with like the Priestess College, and then the Paladin's
There's a rich history of the Oak Temple and men of that space, and Graell herself doing really powerful ceremony. And to this day, the men lead the vernal equinox and the Samhain ceremonies, and it's a revitalization right now. That's what the Paladin's path is all about, building. It's an experience that you come and have for yourself, right? In a way. And it's a prayer to the land and to the earth and to all that is good and holy. And it's beyond just an experience. I'm a community builder. I think that is, as I mentioned earlier, the Sangha is of vast importance, not to be discarded. And so building a community of people who are involved, particularly in the Paladin's path and Order of Knights, and we do service when we're there as well. Last time on the Paladin's path, we built a womb hut for the women to use in their ceremonies and around womb and birthing. And so the men physically constructed this.
Wow.
This is perhaps another, yes, and this is a similar manifestation to what you experienced, where there was a man who was just there. There's a total safe space to just be with no expectation and allowing. That's very healing, as you mentioned. This also, to have men show up, these priestesses deserve it. I'll tell you what. So the men did a 3-day immersion last time, right? Like, wow, 3-day immersion. The women did a 13-day retreat. They did a 13-day priestess college slam dunk. It's amazing work. I've done, having lived and done residential spiritual training in modern monasteries and other settings, I'll tell you that it's top notch. You don't find this in many places. People going this deep on this level of incredible experiential priestess arts training. So yeah, so these priestesses, they deserve to be honored in the work that they're doing. It's important work for men too. It's important for all beings, really, that they do this work. And so to have men show up and build this structure and put physical labor, and there's something very, as part of a ceremony, as an intentional practice, saying we honor you. It's not like, hey, we're just here for the construction crew. This is all part of sacred space that we're cultivating the whole Paladin's path. And so we construct that, and then of course we're repaid in incredible goodness as all the men went into this hut after it was built. The women surrounded it with their incredible buzzing bee energy of the Melisai, the ancient bee nymph priestess energies and magics. Honey in the heart. Oh my gosh. And the men were birthed from what they had just created for the women. And so this is very healing for the men too, in big ways, right? Like to have women come and to be rebirthed, and then out of the womb with loving, caring, safe space when you're back on the earth instead of a hospital metal tray or whatever. And it's very healing. Yeah. And that is the kind of work that's being done. Yeah.
So what is the training? So Paladin's Path is the name of this training. So tell us,
like, what are we up to?
What is it? Yeah, what are you doing?
Yeah.
What happens in there? And yeah.
Well, it is this kind of stuff that I've just mentioned. It's building, and it's many things. I draw from a number of sources in my life. Of course, meditation. So there's a bunch of that. Interpersonal relating, authentic relating, as I mentioned as well.
Are you doing 13 days, or are you doing?
The upcoming immersion is going to be. Oh, look, I have a handy prop. Yay! Here you can probably see the dates. It is April 28th through May 2nd. That is with Beltane is of course on May Day. That's that Saturday, May 1st. And so this is the upcoming Paladin's Path training, and it is a 5-day immersion. We did a 3-day last time. We're stepping it up to a 5-day. Now the ladies are of the Priestess College, the priestesses. They are rocking a 19-day deep dive, on-site, residential, amazing. Who's doing that? It's all online courses, and it's like,
right,
just turn into a Zoom live stream. This is great, but like, there's really, having lived residentially and done community spiritual training in community versus just the other ways that are offered, I know it's a privilege to be able to do that, and I acknowledge that fully. And honestly, though, I just can't. I can't see a way not, like, it's a necessity to me. So that's why I'm so full in with what Graell is doing, and I just keep saying yes, because I'm like, this is incredible work that is empowering, and it's bringing about. There's going to be rippling effects of goodness of the people that are going through this. So these ladies, 19 days. These paladins, 5 days. Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
do you in these trainings, do you talk
we
about
talked
how
to
as men
what do we
we
do?
see
What
women?
happens in them? Yeah.
Yeah.
So there, I mean,
'Cause
there
I
are
only know what
discussions.
happens like in a women's training. I don't know what happens. I mean, I've done a
Yeah,
lot of martial arts and
right.
grew up like being around a
There is
lot of
martial
men and
arts.
experience like that, but not
Yeah.
like, obviously not
It's
in
a
men.
holistic
Super non-men.
experience. I mean, one of the things that I found is that really incorporating the modalities that some of the participants had ahead of time, because I had coaching calls and stuff with each of them before we had the event. So it's like I'm already connected with people on a certain, at least to a certain depth. And so we incorporated different modalities. We had somebody Brother Alvin, who actually is in LA where you are and is part of martial arts in cinematography and does fighting training for people in Hollywood. And so he brought physical, sacred interaction among men who there's a thing that comes up for a lot of men where there's a lot of this. I hear it a lot. Somebody last night, a fine night, talking to me about this, these a sort of aggressive, powerful energy that's like, that it's like, what do you do with that exactly? And so if it can come out sideways in all kinds of ways, and we don't really learn like necessarily what to do. There are avenues to deal with it, but oftentimes those have problems too. Like you could be like, all right, like where is it embodied? Like sports, I guess, but there's a lot of problems. Like if you look at like, all right, it's all selling beer and pizza and it's just like checked out from the world. So what do you personally do though? You could exercise and stuff, but that's actually a good thing to do. Please exercise. I don't want to minimize exercise. But we had Alvin teaching these knights and leading them in grappling and learning different moves where they could express their physical power in a way that's in a safe space, lovingly in Brotherhood, and outside in nature with their feet pushing into the ground. As beautiful. So that's an example of the kind of work that we're doing there. A bunch of ceremony, a bunch of time by the fire, sacred song, meditation. We other modalities, like I was saying, Brother Shanti, one of the captains, is going to be helping to run the retreat coming the next 5-day Paladin's Path, bringing in Tai Chi and Qigong. We have a full day planned of tree magic with Hervé, this incredible heroic sword quester. We have different ranks in the Paladin's Path based on some of the feats that people can receive honorifics. It's something that I like and I think is fun. So he's one of the sword questers. He was willing to carry this ancient sword of 13 years that Graell has. Really powerful. Anyway, he's a fine knight. He's leading a day of tree magic because he's a professional tree gardener, if you will. He is a tree pruner and caring for them and for all the ways to make trees healthy, happy. And that's his profession. But then he's a deeply magical ent of sorts, a green man. And so we're going to have that. We're going to be preparing to help launch the Beltane celebration. That's kind of the pinnacle of this, because we're talking community, all these people outside dancing around the sacred maypole. We're talking joy and all the energies of aliveness of reuniting, like you've been saying. People have had this last year, which much less connection, so this joyful reemergence, and carrying that sacred time of the year, as you say. And we'll be helping to prepare for that. We'll be retrieving the sacred oak tree, and much, much more. Plus there's like fun and dancing and time for yourself on the land too. There's integration and connection with others. There's the ceremonies often will involve both the paladins and the priestesses. So there are times where we're off doing our own thing, and there's actually two physically pretty separated spaces with this big field in the middle. But then sometimes we meet somewhere like over here, over there, and then have a little beautiful dance of some kind and have some spiritual magic happen, and then return and keep doing our work or whatever. So that's happening. And there's this like fairy field that you march across in sacred chant. Oftentimes, like I find this to be a very useful tool when leading a pack of 13 men. So I'll just be like, Hey, everybody. Maybe would you like to hear a little something, a little song?
It's cutting out now.
Oh, it's cutting out. Well, then leave it behind. We're fresh.
It does, it's Zoom, it does this thing. I used to do a lot of performing on Zoom, and I had to stop that because I would sing and play my guitar at the same time, or sing and play my drum. And so anyway, as you were playing it, it just overwhelms the system.
No, it's okay. So the message there is, please come and hear me drumming live in Ashland on Beltane. I'll probably be drumming, and I'll be there, and there will be all kinds of goodness. So you can hear it live in person. You don't have to hear it over these speakers. Look, you can see this. Yeah.
Yeah, I love those drums.
PSA. Yeah, this is okay. I'm like obsessively throw out shout outs to Soul Connections in Shasta, where this drum came from. It's like the metaphysical emporium with like the best place ever. Don't buy any supplies anywhere but there, because they're the cheapest and best selection. And that's another plug. They're not paying me or anything, I swear. I just am a fanboy.
This is awesome. They must sell their things online, so for anyone who's listening, that's great.
Soul Connections. So
all of these trainings and all this experience like culminates on the Beltane Festival, and we did talk a lot about that with Sativa last time. And it's another thing that community is super involved, and it is a fertility festival, so there's a lot of aspects of that are brought into the ceremony. I know that Graell likes lovers to bring in their lovemaking bed sheets and things like that, and people bring their energy of like love and connection and union and all of that into ceremony, and just allow people to be involved. And I have been wanting to go to this Beltane ceremony for a number of years now, and didn't get to go last year because of the 2020 situation. And then I was trying to go the year before, and so anyway, I'm always trying to go to Beltane or Samhain. And so I know that I will end up now I'm working on my music degree, which is an awesome experience, but it's very it's captivating all of my time. So someday it will line up to be there. So anyway, I love to hear about all of this from all of you. I love to hear about what it is that's going on up there, and having had like a little bit of experience myself for like shorter periods of time, being up there and doing some trainings, I just know how potent it is, and I know how magical it is. And so
thank you. And I look forward to seeing you there. Bless it. Yes. It's just an invitation. It's just like the invitation just keeps flowing from me. It's like a nonstop, like, I love you. Come. Yeah. To all you fine friends, if you're listening live, or if this is being recorded, then you're seeing it later.
Yeah.
Yay. Come and participate. Yeah. There's something that's coming to me that I'd like to share.
Please.
We talk a lot about all these things that are happening. We've talked about modern monasticism. We're talking about the training that's going on at the Priestess College, Paladin's Path. It's important to recognize that the fundamental heart of what we're doing is rooted in loving all beings, finding a collective, universal goodness and nurturing that relationship that we have with our entire family of all life. And so this is really at the heart of it, is, can we serve the entire world? Can we love everybody? Can we deeply, deeply connect with all of the earth beings and energies? Every being throughout time and space can we open to, our hearts so wide. that is what is needed. And that, don't take needed the wrong way. It's just what the vow is aligning to. Each of us are playing our own part in our own vow, and this is the guiding North Star of our compass. May we be deeply, deeply in love and in service of all beings. Amen, Awen, Ashe, Aho. And as my brother Paladin Lloyd Barty likes to say, a magician and a wizard will say, aha. Instead of amen or amen, aha. Yeah. It's got a little magic to it, huh? So yeah, thank you for receiving that teaching.
Thank you for coming here. Thank you for sharing with us. Thank you for, sharing with us your personal experiences and your wisdom, and yeah.
My wisdom, I like WIZDUMB, wisdom. Wizard?
Yes.
Dumb. Be dumb. So there's a phrase that I've heard Sorry for all my teacher talk about. It's just like, it's a saying that is said in Buddhism sometimes, that donkeys and oxen know, Buddhas and bodhisattvas don't know. So it's like somebody who knows, oh, I got it all figured out. I'm about to tell you everything you need to know and listen and do everything. Well, they're like a donkey, yo. And the ones who are just like, okay, I'm completely open to whatever the great mystery of life unfolds. And I will be, as we were saying earlier, a hollow bone, a hollow bamboo for spirit to fill me. Those are the Buddhas and bodhisattvas. Those are the ones that are wise. So it's wisdom, because if you're dumb, you're humble, right? Like, I don't know what's going on. Oh, whoa, look at this. This just popped into my life. This is a dragon's eye that I made. Okay. So I was like, suddenly it's having that embodiment is like, it's a wild ride, and I highly recommend it. And it is available to all through the practice of mindfulness.
Oh, that's awesome. It takes one, a certain amount of experience to get to that point of realizing, the more that I know, the more that we know, the more that we learn, we get to that point where we realize, all that we don't know. But it's hard when we're really young to have that experience yet, because we're just, we're learning. And so anyway, thank you for
it's
your
good to know things too. Knowing things can be helpful too, right? It's interesting. So many times these seeming opposites and polarities are, it's like you knowing things is good, not knowing things is good. Which one is right? This one or that? No, actually, it's that they're all there's like wisdom in both, and it's like they're both. It's like everything all at once. Like both of the things that seem to be opposites are actually true, and everything is aligned in that way. I like to look at it recently in that way in a lot of various aspects of life. So fun to explore.
Absolutely. Tell us how to find you. So if there's anyone listening, anyone that has, someone that they want to recommend you to or this program to, I'm going to put all the information in the show notes in a place where somebody can see them written and with clickable links. But for the people who are just listening, please.
And thank you so much for having me on this show and doing this. This has been a blast. I'm just loving this, Jamie. So thank you. Thank you to everyone. Thank you to friend, whoever you are. You are a beautiful, radiant being of light. And thank you for being in my life in this way. Yes, right now I'm putting out the call to spiritually inclined men who are interested in doing the 5-day immersion around Beltane. So if you know those men in your life, or you are one of them, male identified person, please reach out to me. You can find me on Facebook as Pan Williams. You can find me on Instagram as @meditatinglorax. Meditating Lorax, like I have a tattoo on my body, but I'll show you another time. The Lorax, Dr. Seuss. There you go. Meditating Lorax. And you can go to www.priestesscollege.com/Paladin's Path. Okay. and there's a screenshot if you want to take it. So you can go there and sign up. And many thanks for spreading the word about this opportunity to people who might benefit from participating. And you yourself should come no matter what to Beltane for just at least the day-long Beltane ceremony. So yeah.
I need to get there. I need a van that I can live in and do my work out of and bring my cats with me.
Yeah, go remote. Come on up.
Yeah, absolutely. So we will see. We will see if the stars align for that to be able to happen. It's just, it is so healing just to be on the land, and it's an important thing that I need to do, you know, from living in the city. I live in an amazing city with amazing energy, but it is a city. And so I think it's important for all of us that live in the cities to get out and be in nature. And, you know, Ashland is a city also, but it's much smaller than where I live. And there's, you know, being on the land at the goddess temple is, you know, you're on the land and there's surrounded by trees, and also, especially with all the fires and everything that did happen, it's like energy needs to be brought there. You know, people need to bring their love there and their energy and attention there, and touch the land and meditate on it and help to, you know, heal what was so burnt there last year. So, but thank you. It's been awesome to have you here. It's been awesome to learn from you and get to know about the work that you're doing. And I look forward to when I get to meet you in person. Thank you to everyone who's listening. If you know, if you're not on YouTube, please go find the channel on YouTube and subscribe at Jaime Black. You can find me at jaimeblack.com. All of my offerings and my music. And you know, thank you all for being here. For you that are listening, I mean, that's who I do this for. So
yes. And if I could just end on that note of saying thank you again, Jaime, and to each of you listening, thank you. And one of the reasons that we do this is to reach out to people all over the place. And it would be wonderful if you came and saw us in Ashland, but no matter what, please tune into the energetic presence of what's happening there. And it can be of great benefit even remotely. And also you can add your prayers, as we're saying, to the collective. So thank you.
Awesome. All right. We hope you all have a blessed Sunday evening, and you know, forever after that. So blessed be.
Blessed be, friends. Blessed